Hey guys, this is Michael from the Bitfeed, and today I'm going to be giving you a review and looking at the fundamentals of Bounty0x. So what we're going to do now is talk about the history of Bounty0x. We're going to look at its white paper briefly and its team, and then we're going to talk about where we can actually see this project going in the future. So if we look on ICO Bench, we can see that the token actually didn't receive that much attention during its ICO phase. But something worth noting is that it was selling for about 3 cents in its pre-ICO. Now we know Bounty0x at its peak during the January bull rush was at about 80 cents a token. So anybody who bought in this early would have come off with incredible profits and will be very happy with this investment. But Bounty0x actually didn't have a successful ICO, all things considered. They had a hard cap of 10 million and they didn't even reach their soft cap of 7 million. And if I recall correctly, they only received about 1.5 million in initial investment. So the team didn't even receive the minimum amount of funds that they were looking for in their soft cap, but they've still progressed with the project and they've been doing a lot of work since then, which is actually quite positive and something that we look for in terms of long-term prospects for a project. So here in February 16, we see that the market's been recovering from the early February crash. Bounty0x at its peak was selling for about 80 cents, 90 cents even, and reached a low of 8 cents since then. So if anybody was able to buy in at the ICO of 3 cents, sell at 90 cents, buy back in at 8 cents, they would have accumulated a huge amount of Bounty0x tokens and are probably in a pretty comfortable spot, as it seems like there's a general uptrend in the Bounty0x market. But what we want to know is if this time frame here, when Bounty0x was ranging between 70 and 90 cents, if this was actually a fair price for them. Is this a token that could be worth over $1? Is this a token that deserves a rank in the top 200, the top 100? So in short, if we look at the Bounty0x white paper, we can see that what they're making is a decentralized platform where bounty hunters can receive payment for tokens in exchange for completing bounty tasks. Now, what we see here is that initially they were focused on ICO startups, but since then they've actually branched out. And for example, we've seen bounties put up to $100,000 to find information on the recent Ether Delta hack. So while initially they were looking to focus on ICOs, they've actually branched out, which is probably better for the project in the long term, since ICOs are such a niche market and we're getting a bigger picture from Bounty0x and a wider breadth of market reach. And so the way we can see this playing out is actually quite straightforward. The bounty host will set a bounty, they'll set a price, the sheriff will review this bounty and see whether it's acceptable. A bounty hunter will complete it, and then the sheriff will actually ensure that this was completed properly, at which point the bounty host's tokens will be activated by the smart contract to pay out to the bounty hunter. Overall, I think the Bounty0x economy is sound, but they just need to find a bit more use case and a bit more of appeal to the Bounty0x token. Now, we need to talk about the team and the people we actually have working on the project, because this is something that we actually criticized Bounty0x for in our review. Now, the Bounty0x team is by no means incompetent. Actually, what they've done so far is really impressive, because even in their ICO, they had a working platform, a working product which they could show. And while that doesn't sound like much in the ICO realm, in today's date, in today's context, that is leaps and bounds ahead of what we're seeing pushed out in modern ICOs. So firstly, the main issue we have is generally how vague and how vacuous the descriptions of these founders are. And if you go to their LinkedIn, which I'm not going to do on this video, but you can follow this up by just clicking on their pictures, you'll see that there's quite a limited description of what they've actually done in the past and why we should have faith in them to deliver a project in the future. And what I'm talking about can actually be seen quite plainly here. Angelo Adam, the CEO and hopefully the driving force of the project, is said to be an equities trader at a hedge fund. Now that's a very vague, open statement, and we don't get much more information. If you go to his LinkedIn and you try to find out who this hedge fund is and the kind of work they've done, the link actually doesn't take you anywhere. So you can't actually find any information, and there's no way to verify if what he's saying is actually true. Now we have Pascal Thelman, the PR and marketing person on that team, a very important role in any cryptocurrency project where the marketing is often the driving force of a project, more so than the actual utility and fundamentals of it. Now we see that he co-funded a successful German e-commerce site. We have no clue what that is, but what we also found is that Pascal was still interning in 2015 for a company called Tech for Fun. Now, Dennis Dowkillick, who might be one of the more important people in the team, given that he's the lead developer and is doing all the underlying software engineering for the project, we see that if we look at his LinkedIn, he actually states that he's a part-time software engineer for Bounty0x. So he's not even full-time working on this project. Now, that might have changed and he might not have updated his LinkedIn, but again, that's a little bit of a red flag when your lead software engineer isn't even a full-time employee on your project. But again, it's worthwhile considering that this is a new project they've recently released from ICO, and they're still looking to employ people and build up their team. And on top of that, we've seen other projects like Ryblox, now rebranded to Nano, having been incredibly successful with just one person working on it part-time. And that's the point that we're trying to get at when we make these criticisms and point to how dubious some of the elements of their employment history are. Because what they've done so far, again, is very impressive, and what they do in the future might actually change the whole crypto world and be the lead bounty hunting software platform in the world. But just looking at the project right here and now in this context, it is a little bit of a red flag to be cautious of before you might put some of your hard-earned money into the project. Now, since we've written our review in early January, we've seen that Bounty0x has actually lined up a few more partnerships, and these were actually released in rapid succession on Reddit and social media. And we see that they have a few names: IBC, AXPire, and Civic. Now, in my opinion, and you might disagree, these partnership agreements are great for drumming up community hype, but overall, none of them are too substantial. None of these are super renowned in the crypto industry. None of these are household brand names that are going to bring new long-term investors rushing to Bounty0x. Again, these are nice to see, and for the people who've actually bought into the token, it would have been very heartwarming to see these string of announcements come out on Reddit. But overall, you can see that here, for example, with Expire, they don't actually have too much to say about it. These are very small, low-key partnership agreements that are going to add to the project and hopefully grow over time. But in terms of looking to the utility of the project and adding a lot to it, there's not too much to see here just yet, other than small additions to the business, such as minimizing the amount of fraudulent activity in fake accounts. But something to actually get excited about, and something that is worthy of note and praise, is the fact that they've released Bounty0x Alpha 2.0. And what this means is that their main exchange platform, the Bounty0x platform, has been completely updated from the bare bones, quite rough around the edges exchange that they had before. So now we have a fresh UI, social media automation, and importantly, there's automated payment distribution, because beforehand, hosts had to manually pay out people, whereas now we have the smart contract properly activating to distribute funds from the host to the bounty hunters. On top of that, you have other aspects such as an improved dashboard and bug fixes being eliminated, and we can actually see that right here. And you can check all of this out just by coming to the Bounty0x main exchange. And if you haven't seen this before, maybe you think it's a little plain and not too much is going on, but having been somebody who went through the previous alpha quite a lot, this is actually a vast improvement. This looks a lot better just at first glance, and there's actually a lot more bounties being listed right now. And this is something to keep in mind, that this is a working project, something that many coins and tokens in the top 100 actually don't have, because you can come here right now if you're a software engineer or somebody who's tech savvy, click on some of these and get paid out in a variety of different currencies. And we can do that right now. We can scroll down and peruse these bounties and actually see what's on offer. Now you'll see that there are a lot of things like Telegram bounty campaigns, Facebook bounties, Twitter bounties. A lot of these are pretty vague and people just want to get followers for their social media, and this technically qualifies as a bounty. But you'll see that there's also things like requests for information regarding hackers, and that you'll get paid out 100,000 bounty tokens if you can actually do this. So there's a real use for this service, and people are trying to engage software engineers and people with very technical skills to resolve real-world problems. And I think in terms of looking at project longevity, that's an important thing to consider, that people are already using this. And as cryptocurrency and blockchain technology becomes more and more mainstream, then this is very likely a service that can be used long into the future. Now at this point, I just wanted to show people that Bounty0x has a pretty big community, considering that their token hasn't even broken into the top 200 yet. Or if it did break into the top 200, then it fell out of it during the crash. And we see that they have 5,000 people who are subscribed to this, and there's generally a lot of engagement here. And importantly, the devs are actually very active here. They've had AMAs, and they've replied to comments, and they've replied to people with genuine questions. And overall, I think community support and community drive for these smaller tokens is what is likely to propel them into being a long-term currency and token, because it's still early days for Bounty0x, and their platform, which is dependent on engagement from a variety of people, either posting bounties or completing bounties or moderating bounties, needs community engagement. And again, this is just another thing that makes me bullish on the long-term prospects of Bounty0x, even though we have seen it fall so dramatically in price in the last few weeks. So overall, that's my very general thoughts in the few minutes that I've been speaking. Again, come to our Bounty0x review. You can read through it. It should take you about 6 minutes, and you'll get a sense of why we think that this is a project that, while it has a few problems and drawbacks such as token utility and the fact that the team behind it don't have the experience that we'd hope for in such a promising project, there is a long-term potential here where, particularly for people who got in during the ICO and before the January-December bull rush, there's a very real potential to make a lot of money here and to be part of what is likely one of the largest emerging platforms in the crypto sphere at this moment. Now, again, we gave it a 3.5 out of 5, which in my opinion means that it's above average and has decent long-term potential. And if it's not something that you want to put money into, then at the very least you should put it on your watch list and keep track of how it moves over the next few weeks and months, because we can see here, looking at it, that at 18 cents, we know that it can reach heights of 80, 90 cents. So this could be a very ideal opportunity to jump on board if you're on the fence about it, or at the very least to keep watching the project, because it looks like they're trying to add something of value to the cryptocurrency space and community. And at the very least, it looks like they're trying to create a project which has value and real use, which again, you can come to the top 10, top 20 tokens here, and we see that projects like Cardano, like Tron, have pretty vague and dubious working products at the moment compared to some of the other coins and tokens in this space. So again, that's all I wanted to say about Bounty0x. I think it's an interesting project, and I think it's a token worth watching if you haven't been already. So if you're interested in our written reviews or our videos, follow us on Twitter at @officialbitfeed. We put out a written review every week, but we're looking to improve on that, just because we're only a few people who are doing this part-time in our spare time, trying to give you guys information and fundamental technical analysis reviews. And also consider coming to the Bitfeed, and you can click on subscribe, type in your email address, and you'll be notified whenever we put out an article. And if you have time, consider reading some of our other articles. So that's all from me today. If you enjoyed this review, please like, subscribe, and if you have any currencies or tokens that you'd like us to review, whether by video or written article, please let us know in the comments. Alright, Thanks, guys.